Dave, and you'll notice that I'm actually not preaching from the stage at 3rd and Lindsley today. We had a few technical difficulties this last week, and so I thought instead of just kind of leaving a week off of the website here, we'd just do a quick recap of what it was we were talking about in the sermon on this last Sunday. This is week 3 of Good in the Neighborhood, and really the big thing that we were talking about this week was the idea that in America, we have this concept that busy is always better. The idea that we need to have our calendars full, we always need to have our schedules jam-packed with things, and oftentimes we're always in a rush to go from point A to point B. We got to get to that meeting, we got to get to that meal time, we've got to run all over the place, we got all these things to do, and in fact, our to-do lists are getting longer when technology is allowing us more time to be able to get things done, right? We have phones that allow us to do more things, even though we can do them quicker with phones and computers and all the technology that we have, we still find ourselves loaded with more things to do. And so today we want to take just a moment and bust the myth that busy is better. When we take a look at how Jesus loved his neighbors and how Jesus loved people throughout his ministry, a lot of times while he was on his way to do ministry or on his way to speak to people, he'd also take time along the way to love people right where they're at. And so we see in the book of Luke, chapter 10, and in fact I encourage you to open up to that and maybe read it just a little bit here as soon as you're done watching this video. Luke chapter 10 and verse 38, Jesus is on his way somewhere else to do ministry somewhere else, and he sees Mary and Martha and stops and eats at their house. Mary, eager to learn all that Jesus has, sits down at the feet of Jesus and learns from him, while Martha is doing what probably many of us would do, and she's off in the kitchen cooking, she's in the house cleaning, she's making sure everything's just right, and yet she's missing out on what Jesus has for her. And in fact, she even comes out and says to Jesus, Jesus, won't you tell Mary, my sister, to come help me in the kitchen? And Jesus says, oh, Martha, Martha, what your sister Mary has chosen is the best thing. What you are doing is the good thing, but Mary has chosen the better thing. And so if we're going to love our neighbors, one, we should do it on our way to wherever we're going, which means there should be margin in our lives, and I'll speak about that in just a minute. But two, we should be willing to exchange what is good for what is best. Jesus oftentimes will choose the best thing instead of the good thing. And he encourages Martha here that while what she's doing is good, preparing our homes and making great meals for people is a good thing, should it always get in the way of what is the best thing? If we're going to love our neighborhoods well, we have to be willing to exchange what is good for what is best. If you were to turn a little bit later in the book of Luke to Luke chapter 19, you'd find the story of Zacchaeus. I love this story because it really shows the heart of Jesus. You see, Zacchaeus is a chief tax collector. This guy has a bad rep in his neighborhood. In fact, nobody likes him because he's the guy who comes around to collect your taxes for Rome, and on top of that, he'll ask you for more money than you actually owe because he's going to take a cut of it for himself. Nobody likes this guy. Tax collectors were known for being swindlers and money launderers and all those kinds of things. So here's Zacchaeus. He wants to see Jesus because Jesus is on his way to something again. He's passing through on his way to Jericho. And on his way, Jesus sees Zacchaeus up in the tree and says, Zacchaeus, come down. I'm coming to your place for lunch today. And so Jesus goes and has lunch with Zacchaeus and a bunch of Zacchaeus' friends. And all the religious people are standing around and they're looking in at the house that Jesus is at with Zacchaeus. He says, look at that Jesus. He's sitting with these sinners. But Jesus would say in his ministry that the sick are the ones who need the doctor, not the healthy ones. I've come to seek and to save that which was lost. And here Jesus is with Zacchaeus, someone who needs healing, someone who needs a heavenly Father, and he has lunch with him. He values his relationship more than his regimen. And that's really the other thing that I want to recap from this last Sunday, is that if we're going to love our neighbors well, we have to choose relationship over our regimen. In other words, when time is so tight that we can't love the people around us, we've got to ask ourselves the question, is there enough margin in my life to be able to love people as I go? Do I value relationship more than I value going from point A to point C to point, going all the way through and hitting all those points? Sometimes we choose regimen over relationship, but what we see Jesus doing is that even though he's on his way to something else, he chooses the relationship. You know, it's most amazing is that when you consider the way Jesus loved us, he loved us on his way. He loved people like you and I, people like Zacchaeus, people like Mary and Martha, on his way to something else. And it was on his way to the cross that Jesus stopped to love people like you and me, people like Mary and Martha, Zacchaeus. It was on his way to the cross where he would demonstrate his greatest love for us, that he pauses to heal people, to listen to people, to speak to people, to touch people's lives. You see, that's where we see love demonstrated so well, is on the cross, where Jesus laid down his life for you and I, so that we might have life to the full. So as you think about loving your neighborhood, and as you're planning your barbecue for this summer, as you're wanting to get to know your neighbors, I want to encourage you and challenge you to do these two things: to exchange what is good for what is best, and to choose relationship over regimen, as we see Jesus doing that both in Luke chapter 10 with Mary and Martha, and then later on in Luke chapter 19 with Zacchaeus. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Keep watching, keep chiming in, and keep supporting us. Thank you for your prayers, and let's keep following Jesus together. See you guys.